Hi, I'm Rylan Spatonik, and this is my weekly preview of the first week of the NFL season. So let's kick off things with a bang. A rematch from the AFC Championship game, the Ravens versus the Chiefs, on Thursday night at 8:20 p.m. Now, both these teams have played a lot, and the Ravens have not had the best of the Chiefs. As a Ravens fan, I hope we win this game, but I have no bias in this game whatsoever. So I think that the Chiefs might win. It's going to be interesting. But historically, the last couple of years, the team that has won the Super Bowl and has played the opening game has lost. The Chiefs did this last year. They played the Lions, and they got upset at home by the Lions. Now, Kadarius Toney was a big, issue in that, and that he played horrible, and everyone realized that, oh, no, he actually does suck. And we also learned that the Chiefs wide receivers can catch, but that doesn't mean anything because apparently they can turn it on a different level in the playoffs, so I don't understand that. But the Ravens this year, we're not coming out of nowhere. We have a destiny, and I think they're going to prove it this year. We're not going to be underdogs to the end of the season. Be like, oh, where did they come from? No. They just got Derrick Henry. I think we're ready to go. I think we're going to run it up their gut, every single play. I think Lamar is going to put it in the air when he has to, not when he wants to, when he has to. If we're down at all, and even if we're down, I think we should still run the ball, okay? We should still run the ball. Now, this game is going to be very interesting. As a Ravens fan, I hope we win, but I'm not sure. The Chiefs play the Ravens very well, but the Chiefs have a very bad run offense, so it's going to be interesting. But the Chiefs' defense has been very good lately. They did lose their top corner in L'Jarius Sneed, and the Ravens did lose Geno Stone and Patrick Queen. But we've got new additions on safety with Eddie Jackson and those two new players we got out of the draft. So I think it's going to be interesting. And I'm going to say the Ravens are going to win. So I hope the Ravens win this game. So that'll be on Thursday night. So the next game is the very next day on Friday. Who could have seen that? This is in Brazil between the Packers and the Eagles. It's going to be a very interesting game. I think Jordan Love is going to ball out this season. Even though last season he played very good, but he had weird stints during the season where he would play amazing. He would play amazing for 5-6 weeks, and then he just kind of took a bad slump. I don't really understand that. The Eagles played great last season for around 10-11 games before they started to dip off, and they did what the Steelers did in 2020 where they won 11 games. They looked like a really good team, even though they weren't a good team, and then they just collapsed. I don't understand it. I think they were 11-2 at one point, and they just are 10-2, and they just won one more game, and then and then they got beat by the Bucs in the wild card. I don't understand that. But anywho, let's get back on track. The Packers-Eagles game is going to be interesting. Hurts is, he doesn't have Jason Kelce this year, so it's going to be interesting. But I think I'm going to give it to the Eagles that they're going to win it, but I think it's going to be very high scoring. It's in Brazil, so technically it's a neutral game, but it is an Eagles game because they're playing at home, I guess, is what counts on the schedule. But I think it's going to be somewhere that we've never seen before, in Brazil. So I'm not sure who's going to win, but I'm going to give you my best prediction. I think the Eagles are going to win. Not sure on the final score. Maybe I'm going to give it 34-31. Eagles win. So, yeah, and Saquon Barkley is going to be a huge factor. Same thing with Josh Jacobs on the other side for the Packers. But they did just lose A.J. Dillon, but I think that just means he's going to get more carries. Now, moving on, a slight dip. So a lot of these games are on Sunday at 1 o'clock. Panthers-Saints, this game is going to be a stinker, okay? Panthers won 2 games last season. Both those games, they won. They didn't score a single touchdown, and they still won. One of them was C.J. Stroud. Not sure how they won that. Anywho, the Saints, they're not too good right now. Their offense is, at best, good, and their defense is also okay. Those teams are very mid, and the Panthers just are not good. So I think the Saints are going to beat that. I think they're probably going to blow them out. Actually, the Panthers haven't scored a regular season touchdown or any points in, since December. Because their last 2 games of the season last year, they were shut out twice. So they haven't scored a point in, 9 to 10. I mean, they hadn't scored a single point this year. That's unbelievable, I'm pretty sure. I think the Saints will win. Moving on to the Vikings, the Giants, sorry. I think the Vikings and Giants, I think this game is also going to be pretty bad. I mean, the Vikings just lost their starting quarterback, and it's going to be interesting how Justin Jefferson will play with, not Kirk Cousins, even though they played like 8 games or so without Kirk Cousins. But Jefferson was hurt a lot of those games, and he came back and he played pretty good. But their quarterbacks, they were just chucking that ball. They're getting 2-3 picks, 300 yards, and they were losing. So it's going to be interesting. I think for fantasy-wise, he's going to be really good because they're just going to be chucking him the ball and then, forget about running. They're just going to be down all the time. Giants, I have no expectations for the Giants. I think they're going to suck this year like they always do. But I think the Vikings are going to win. So that's what I think. Now, the next game also is going to be not that good. Patriots-Bengals. Yes, it's the Bengals, but the Bengals aren't actually that good in the beginning of the season. The last couple, year or so, the Bengals just have not been performing, and Joe Burrow is coming off a huge injury, and Drake May is not playing for the Patriots. That is going to be Jacoby Brissett. Now, if Brissett gets pulled or injured, he might come in, but it's just going to be a very slow, very low-scoring game. Both those teams do not have a very good defense, and the Bengals got a slight nerf this year. They lost Joe Mixon and Tyler Boyd. They did get Zach Moss, but it's going to be interesting. I mean, Jamar Chase is really going to have to step up, and he has. He's an elite wide receiver, but he does get shut down sometimes, and he's been getting hurt lately, so it's going to be interesting. But I think the Bengals are still going to beat them by 2 touchdowns maybe. So next game is the Steelers and Falcons. I don't know what's happening over in Steel City for the Steelers. It's going to be very interesting, this game. Russell Wilson is the starter. I'm not sure who their running backs are, if it's Justin Fields, Cordero Patterson, Jalen Warren, Najee Harris. I mean, or they, unretired Jerome Bettis. I'm not sure who their running backs are. They don't really have consistent, players. Yes, George Pickens is the number 1 wide receiver, but he doesn't get used a lot sometimes. And it's just, I don't really understand. And for the Falcons, that team could be interesting this year. People were saying a lot of good things about Kirk Cousins and Bijan Robinson. Hopefully we'll have a great year, not split carries again like he did last year. And I also don't think Kyle Pitts is that good. I mean, anyone who scores 6 touchdowns in 3 years is really not that good. I mean, Odell, I think, has the same amount of touchdowns in that time span. And he's played not even half the amount of time. And Odell's a bad example, but it is a comparable example. I think the Falcons will win, and I think it'll be close. It'll be interesting. Also, it's weird that Michael Penix is on the Falcons, and he's just riding on the bench. I mean, he might not even play till he's 26, 27 years old. And you'd be like, well, that's a long time. No, not really. I'm pretty sure he's 24 years old. So, yeah, I think the Falcons are going to win. But I think it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be high scoring. Steelers play a very boring brand of football, but they always, get a winning season. I don't know how and where they pull it out of, but it is what it is. Now, moving on to the Texans-Colts. Now, this is a great game, okay? The Texans have a whole bunch of new players this year. They got Danielle Hunter and Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon. Those are all Pro Bowl and maybe even first-team All-Pro players, okay? Phenomenal players. Stephon Diggs was a top 5 wide receiver. Not this year, but in years past, he was even top 3. Joe Mixon is a pretty good receiving back, and I don't know how good he is recently, but he's on the decline, but I think he's going to have a resurgence on the Texans. And Danielle Hunter just coming off as one of his best seasons on the Vikings, now coming to the Texans. They are loaded right now. Now against the Colts. Now, the Colts last year were kind of a weird team because they had Anthony Richardson, who was playing pretty well, but he kept on getting hurt. So when I kept on seeing him get hurt and when he got put on IR, you know who he reminded me of? He reminded me of Cam Newton. This big quarterback with a big, nice arm and likes to run and score touchdowns. And what happened to Cam Newton is he was so good, but really he just kind of fell off the earth after that one MVP season. He would get hurt constantly. And these guys, they play kind of the same. Now, I don't think Anthony Richardson has quite the same arm as Cam Newton, but I think they're comparable in size. I mean, Anthony Richardson 6'4", Cam Newton 6'5". He likes to put his head down and run forward. But he is a little dangerous with that football, okay? He will throw a pick. I watched a little bit of him in the preseason. He flashed his ups and his very, very bad downs. He would lead a nice drive, go right down the field and score a nice touchdown. The very next drive for him, he was on like the 10-yard line, threw a bad slant pass, got picked off, went right back the other way, and they scored a touchdown. But I think the game is actually going to be very high scoring, so it's going to be interesting. So Texans-Colts. I think the Texans will win, but I think it's going to be very close. It's actually going to be very high scoring. So, yeah. And if Anthony Richardson gets hurt, my man Joe Flacco will come in and he will ball out, okay? Flacco is amazing. Anywho, let's move over. Also at 1 o'clock on Sunday is the Cardinals-Bills. I think the Bills will beat the Cardinals pretty easily, even though the Bills lost a lot of weapons of theirs, like Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. But, I mean, Josh Allen is just so amazing. I mean, the only reason why he's not winning Super Bowls is because of Mahomes. So, it's going to be interesting. Anywho, now with the Cardinals, they got Marvin Harrison Jr., and he is pretty good. I didn't watch too much of him in college at Ohio State, but he's pretty good. But I don't put a lot of stock in the rookies. But he could be really good. And if he's anything like his father was for the Colts, then he is going to be an absolute nightmare for teams. But it's unknown. We have no idea. Kyler Murray is coming back from a season last year where he only played a handful of games, and he played pretty bad, and the Cardinals played horrible. James Conner is also pretty good, but he is so injury-prone, so it's impossible to know. But I think the Bills will win, but I also don't think it will be that commanding of a win, but it will be a win nonetheless. Now, the next game is Titans-Bears. Titans are a weird team right now. I don't know what's happening with them. They just got Tyler Boyd and Tony Pollard. So, you know, those players are very mid. And they also have DeAndre Hopkins and Will Levis. I'm pretty sure that's their starting quarterback. He's weird. I mean, he puts mayo in his coffee. I mean, that's a weird guy. I mean, if it was up to me, I would bench him and put in Ryan Tannehill. But Ryan Tannehill, I don't even think he's on the team. So I'm not really sure, you know. Not sure. But the Bears are looking good this year. Well, we haven't seen them yet, but they are looking good in the offseason. Caleb Williams looks really good in preseason. They got Keenan Allen, and they got Ramon Dunze, and they got a whole bunch of other players like DeAndre Swift. You know, that team they're building up a very nice and very solid and actually stacked roster. I'm pretty sure they just got Kevin Byard, who is, you know, getting up in age, but he was a first-team All-Pro safety. So, yeah, I think the Bears will win. But it's so hard to know for the Bears because they got a lot of new players, and a lot of them are rookies, specifically their quarterback. But Keenan Allen is great, and DJ Moore is also great. So I think their offense is going to be elite. And they have so many tight ends, too. They have Robert Tonyan, who I don't even know if he's still on that team. They got Jared Everett, and they got Cole Kmet, who's going to be their starter. A whole bunch of tight ends. They have a lot of mouths to feed on that team, so it actually might go against them. So it's going to be interesting. But I think the Bears will win, and I don't think it will be that close. And I think the Titans are the Titans, and they're pretty mid. Now, the Jags-Dolphins game is also at 1 o'clock. I think the Dolphins will absolutely beat the Jags because I think the Jags are so horrible. They're that team is the most inconsistent team every year. One year they make the playoffs, the next year they just, they were like 7-2 or 7-3, and then they missed the playoffs. They had a losing record at that point. I mean, they dropped like every game. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is the guy, even though they just paid him like he is the guy. For someone who won one playoff game, and that one playoff game, yes, he come back from 27-0. The reason why it was 27-0 is because he threw four interceptions in one half. You can't be doing that. And then he played against the Chiefs the following week. Yes, he lost. I think he threw another 1-2 picks. That's not good. 5 picks in 2 playoff games is horrible. That is some Nathan Peterman type stats right there. Dolphins, just another year of the Dolphins. Starting off super good in the beginning, so I hope. I'm not personally a Dolphins fan, but I like their brand of football, so I think they're going to easily beat the Jags, and they're playing at home. So I think they're going to beat the Jags. Next game, Broncos Seahawks. Woo! Where's Russell Wilson? Boom, shipped him out after 2 years. We got Bo Nix versus Geno Smith, who I see them benching pretty soon because his magic is falling off, and they're going to put in Sam Howell, who is a gunslinger. I like me some gunslingers when it comes to football. They just chuck that ball. They get a pick. They get sacked, but they get you yards. They get you everything you want. That was Brett Favre. Brett Favre won a Super Bowl and 3 MVPs, and he had a very consistent team for a very long time. Now, granted, in his later years, he just kept on throwing picks, but, what have you. Now, for the Broncos-Seahawks game, the Broncos are just, there's not much going on over there. I think they're going to lose. Same thing with the Seahawks. They're building a pretty interesting defense. They got Mike McDonald from the Ravens, who I'm pretty sure he was our defensive coordinator. He is really good, so I think the Seahawks will beat the Broncos pretty good. That is at 4 o'clock on Sunday. So the next game is the Raiders-Chargers game. I don't know what's happening with either one of those teams, to tell you the truth. Right? They got Gardner Minshew starting for the Raiders. Okay, Gardner Minshew over Aiden O'Connell. Those are not good quarterbacks. Now, they did just get Brock Bowers, who looks really good. I mean, he was amazing on Georgia. I always thought he was kind of like a little smaller tight end. I think he's like 6'2", 6'3", which is, very tall, but for tight end is actually short. And Devontae Adams is still really good, but I can see the decline, from last season. I'm pretty sure he didn't even eclipse 1,000. So I see the decline slowly going down. Anywho, now with the Chargers, they have just, they looked at the Ravens and they said, oh, I like your team. How about I get 2 of your running backs? And that's what they did. They got J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. 2 very mid running backs. J.K. Dobbins didn't even play last year. He played like 1 game and he got hurt during that game. I watched it live. It was horrible. Okay, yes, he had a pretty good game, and then he tore like his Achilles. Gus Edwards did have a very good season last year with like 13 touchdowns and like 800 yards. But that's just because he was like the only guy running the ball, really, because both our running backs tore their legs apart with Keaton Mitchell tearing his ACL. So with the Chargers, they kind of just are detonating their entire team. I mean, they got rid of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Austin Eckler. Oh my God, those players are amazing. They shipped them off all to very decent teams, minus Austin Eckler. He's going to be rotting in, on the Commanders. But I think this game will be won probably by the Raiders, even though the Chargers do have Justin Herbert, who actually I don't think is that good, to tell you the truth. Okay, even though he's been playing very good since he's been in the NFL, he's just been on the down. I mean, he just can't win. I mean, it's just a trend for Chargers quarterbacks. That'd be super good, but they can't win. They're not clutch. I mean, he played 1 playoff game. They were up 27-0, and they lost. They lost to the Jags. He's made 1 playoff game. He's going into, I think, his 5th year. Is that supposed to be the next, Phillip Rivers? And Phillip Rivers was a loser, too. He lost a lot. So, I don't know. I think the Raiders will win. Next game is the Cowboys-Browns. Cowboys did next to nothing in the offseason. I'm pretty sure they did nothing offensively, or just in general in free agency. Now, they did just get Dalvin Cook, who's just been, he was just on the Vikings, and he had an amazing year. And the Vikings went 13-3 that season, or 13-4. And they shipped him off to the Jets the next year because he wanted to win a ring. And he just sat on the bench. He didn't really get that many carries. And then he left. He went to the Ravens. He played okay, had a couple, carries, not too many, and then he left. Then he's just kind of chilling in free agency. He's like, I had 1,800 all-purpose yards, total yards, not even 2 years ago, and I can't even find a starting spot. And that's what the Cowboys did. They brought him on, and I think he's going to be interesting. Also, they brought back Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott was horrible on the Patriots. Every year since his rookie year, he's been on the down. And you might ask me, well, how long has he been in the league? He's been in the league since 2016. We're going on the 2025 season. It's 9 years. That's a long time. So I don't even know why they brought him back. And they got rid of Tony Pollard. But CeeDee Lamb did just get paid. And CeeDee Lamb had an amazing season last year. And I think he's going to do the exact same thing. Because Dak Prescott is coming up on a contract. And a contract year means he's going to ball out. Okay? And I'm pretty sure Dak Prescott got an MVP vote. I don't know how a Cowboys quarterback got an MVP vote, but, sue me. The Browns, okay, they're the Browns, okay? They have Deshaun Watson, he's playing out horrible. He hasn't been good since 2019. And yes, he did play in 2020, but ever since he's been on the Browns, he just cannot stay healthy or just stay on the field, and they cannot win. I mean, they made it to the playoffs, despite Deshaun. Joe Flacco did that. He was the only reason why they went to the playoffs. Amari Cooper is really good. Nick Chubb is hurt, okay? Yes, he's coming back maybe week 5 or 6. He tore his ACL in 3 different parts. His ACL, MCL, and I'm not even sure the other part. That's a lot of places for a running back. And he's not young either. He's drafted the same year as Lamar. He's going into his 7th season in the NFL. That's a long time. And coming off of a very gruesome injury. The last injury that was that bad, could be, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Alex Smith when he tore his entire leg apart. Now, granted, they're not the exact same injury, but he's been gone for a long time. Yes, when he would come back, but he won't even play that much. So I think the Cowboys will easily beat the Browns. So, yeah, I think it's just going to be another year of the Cowboys. Now, moving on. We have the Commanders versus the Buccaneers. That game also was at 4:25. This game is also at 4:25. The Commies versus the Bucs. Commanders, they've got a bunch of old talent that just got on the team, like Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz, and Austin Eckler. All old players. Well, Austin Eckler isn't actually that old. I think he's 27, 28, but that's still old in running back years. And Bobby Wagner is 35 years old, okay? And they got a new quarterback, Jane Daniels, who just won the Heisman for LSU. But I think this game is going to be very mid because both these teams have been very mid the last year or so. The Bucs are pretty good. Mike Evans is phenomenal, okay? Yes, he's in his 10th, going on, I think, his 11th year. Yes, he still gets 1,000 yards. He's not really that flashy, but he's super good. And Baker Mayfield is the same sort of way. He's not really that flashy. But when he has to, he'll win. I don't think he's a game manager. He's pretty close to it. But I think he's better than what they have. I think the Bucs are just better than the Commanders. So I think the Bucs will beat the Commanders pretty easily. So, yeah. Now the next game is a rematch from the wild card. The Rams versus the Lions. Matthew Stafford versus Jared Goff. This is in Detroit again. Now, the Rams are, I don't know how they keep on finding people out of nowhere, okay? With Puka Nacua and Kyren Williams. Now, I think the Lions will beat the Rams pretty easily, but I think Kyren Williams is pretty good. I think he's been playing very well. And same thing with Puka Nacua, and I think Cooper Kupp is just on the down. I mean, ever since that, I think 2022 season, when he had 1,900 yards and like 18 touchdowns, and he won the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl MVP, he's just been going down. I mean, the last 2 seasons, it's shown. Okay, he's been very injured. Stafford is getting up there in age. Okay, and that team is just getting older. But they still have very young players on that team, so it's going to be interesting. I think the Lions are just gearing up for another phenomenal season like they have last year. And I think they're going to beat the Rams, but I think it's going to be a very high-scoring affair. I think Amon-Ra is phenomenal. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is phenomenal. And I also think Sam Laporta is fantastic. So they have a lot of young talent. Yes, they have a great quarterback. He's not going to burn you on his legs. Both those quarterbacks won't. But I think the Lions will win. And for the last game, that was at 8:20 on Sunday. The last game is on Monday at 8:15. The Jets versus the 49ers. Aaron Rodgers is coming back. Aaron Rodgers is coming back. He played like 4 snaps last season. You blink and you miss him. But I think the Jets are going to be, not a laughingstock this year. I think they're going to be really good this year. They got Mike Williams this year. I think they're just gearing up for another season. It's not going to be like last season where they had no idea with Zach Wilson. I think Aaron Rodgers will play great, and I think they're going to have a good season. Now, for the 49ers, they've had a lot of talk this season about, what's happening with them, what's happening with Ayuk. I knew they were never going to trade him. They just signed him again, okay? So I think that team is just gearing up for another phenomenal season. Actually, I'm pretty sure one analytic said that they're going to win every single game. I don't think so. I think the 49ers will win because they're playing in San Francisco at 8 o'clock on prime time. But I think it's going to be actually very high scoring. And if Rodgers can play like he did a couple of years ago, this game might be an actual classic. Okay? And Purdy is a game manager. Okay? People might get mad at me saying that, but I think he's a game manager. But I think all their players are great. Kittle's great. McCaffrey's great. Trent Williams is great. Ayuk is great. I mean, it's going to be a very high-scoring game, and I think the 49ers will win, but it's going to be very close. So that is my weekly prediction on Week 1. I hope for a phenomenal season, and let me know what you think about these games.